Section 2. Dimensions of climate change and the gender gap. Learn more about how climate change affects women and men differently and explore opportunities to bridge the gender gap. Different aspects of gender gaps. In many parts of the world, climate change strengthens the gender gaps by increasing gender-based inequalities, discrimination, and violence. The term gender gap refers to any disparity and inequality between women's and men's condition due to their position or role in society. It concerns inequalities in terms of their participation, their access to opportunities, rights, power to influence and make decisions, incomes and benefits, and control and use of resources. Let's read on to find out how climate change exposes and exacerbates gender gaps. Consequences of disasters. Climate change has increased the frequency of disasters due to floods and other extreme events, affecting particularly populations that are economically and socially marginalized. Within these groups, women and children, particularly girls, are often the most exposed due to socially constructed roles, lack of access to basic knowledge, information, amenities, transportation means, and rights. Let's choose the symbol to the left. Men's livelihoods are often more visible as women tend to engage in the informal sector and in lower skilled occupations, earning less than men. After disasters, compensation schemes and support tend to focus on men's needs. For example, after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, assistance was available to men to replace fishing boats. However, support to help replace women's fish processing and marketing tools was limited. Lack of resources slows down women's ability to recover from natural disasters. This also has an indirect impact on the fishermen, as it can affect their ability to sell their catch. Let's choose the symbol to the right. Post-traumatic stress increases after natural disasters, especially when families are displaced and have to live in temporary housing in overcrowded conditions with no privacy, lack of future prospects, and limited livelihoods. This often leads to domestic violence, to which women are most vulnerable. Migration. Climate change is increasingly causing people to migrate from their communities to find better social and economic opportunities. Because of existing social norms, women and men tend to react to climate change pressures differently. Let's choose the symbol to the left. In many societies, men have more mobility due to social norms that deem it acceptable for a man to migrate, also due to material facilities such as cars, money, and personal networks. Men are more likely to migrate to areas unaffected by climate change in search of employment, whereas women have fewer opportunities to migrate and are more likely to stay in the affected area to care for the family and the household. Let's choose the symbol to the right. Women are generally forced to migrate in cases where they are single mothers and sole providers for their families. However, if their husband migrates, women's responsibilities in and out of the household increase, since they must carry out additional activities generally handled by men. This situation can result in social stigma directed towards women and their children, who are left behind without a guardian and protector. In Mexico, the impacts of climate change are an important factor in a man's decision to migrate, particularly for men who typically work in agriculture and own land affected by prolonged drought events. By contrast, women who generally do not own land tend to migrate for other reasons, such as economic downturns. It is estimated that by the year 2080, the decrease in national agricultural productivity caused by climate change will force 2% to 10% of adult Mexicans to emigrate. Energy. 40% of the world's population, particularly in rural households in developing countries, depends on traditional forms of energy such as biomass, wood, animal dung, or crop waste. Additionally, nearly half of the world's household meals are cooked over open fires, using inefficient and polluting biomass sources. These practices contribute to climate change due to emission of greenhouse gases, GHG, and accelerated deforestation. The WEF estimated that 20% of the energy sector labour force in 2015 was comprised of women. According to IUCN EGI, 16% of board positions were occupied by women in the 200 top utility companies, and only 10% of women hold lead energy ministry positions. Let's choose the symbol to the left. Men are also involved in the collection of fuel wood and the preparation of meals. Typically, they do not spend the same amount of time involved in these tasks compared to women, which minimizes their exposure to toxic fumes and soot. However, there are some countries, such as Madagascar, where these roles may be reversed. Let's choose the symbol to the right. Not only do women spend time collecting biomass fuel, they also prepare meals using them as energy sources, causing significant indoor air pollution. On average, women spend about 94 minutes each day cooking, whereas men spend 7. Taking care of these basic needs has a major impact on women's health. Every year, household air pollution from cooking with solid fuels accounts for the premature death of more than 4 million people due to related illnesses. Food security, nutrition, and water resources. Climate change is expected to cause more frequent and severe food shortages. This can lead to reduced household income, increased burden for women, and compromised nutritional balance. Also, rising food prices often affect the poorest community members, who are usually women. In most developing countries, women and girls are generally responsible for water collection for domestic use. As climate change can impact the availability and quality of water supplies, women and girls must find alternative water sources that are often farther away or of poorer quality. For example, due to poor hunting conditions in Inuit communities, married men are becoming increasingly dependent on their wives to support the family. However, Inuit women are more vulnerable to food shortages than men, as they will skip meals for the benefit of other family members. Also, they rely on food-sharing networks that depend on steady supplies of traditional food. Climate change impacts human health in various ways and can affect men and women differently, depending on the context. Health includes a range of conditions such as physical ailments, diseases, and mental and maternal health. Let's choose the symbol to the left. Men can also experience health vulnerabilities. After Hurricane Katrina, the proportion of predominantly male firefighters, first responders, and construction workers with skin rashes was very high due to exposure to dirty floodwaters. Let's choose the symbol to the right. The increase in disease rates of HIV, AIDS, hantavirus, hepatitis C, SARS, etc., due to climate change contributes to the domestic burden of women, who are often the primary caregivers for sick family. Women are also vulnerable to maternal infant health issues that are exacerbated by climate change impacts. Political representation. COP21. At the 21st Conference of the Parties, COP21, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, in Paris in 2015, an important agreement was reached on the long-term global response to climate change, known as the Paris Agreement. 32%. Just 32% of delegates and only 20% of heads of delegation who participated in this negotiation were women, demonstrating the degree of underrepresentation in leadership positions. Such an agreement is not easy to retrofit if the negotiations have not accounted for needs and perspectives of women from different backgrounds. At a local level, women's participation and leadership is also very important, since it is precisely at this level that many of the impacts of climate change are being seen. Women's participation in the Rio Conventions. The orange figure denotes CBD COP12 2014. The light yellow is UNCCD COP11 2013, and the dark yellow is the UNFCCC COP20 2014. Across the Rio Conventions, there is a much higher percentage of female NGO representatives, averaging 43%, than government delegates, averaging 33%. For further information on this graph, please check the Environment and Gender Information (EGI). What are the opportunities to bridge the gap between gender and climate change? Given that women constitute half of the world's population, ignoring their voice means that only one half of the planet is contributing to climate change solutions. Women's participation in decision-making processes and the resulting solutions based on their knowledge and experience can benefit all at community, national, and global levels. Women's empowerment can be implemented through structural, cultural changes, legal changes, economic empowerment, social agency, access to information and technology, and capacity building. Let's click here to see how Nigerian women took action. The Niger Delta is one of the world's largest natural resource-rich areas. However, the region has suffered from environmental and human rights abuses, including oil spills and gas flaring, disrupting the ecosystems. In recent years, Nigerian women have mobilized themselves into a community-driven social movement to protest against transnational oil companies and challenge them to become part of the solution. For example, natural gas emitted when drilling for oil has habitually been flared. However, this flaring has been contributing to greenhouse gas emissions greater than those for the whole of the sub-Saharan region combined. In 2006, these protests led to a ruling by the Nigerian courts that gas flaring violated the constitutional rights and life and dignity to citizens, and the courts ordered an end to the practice. Examples of opportunities to bridge the gap. Among Yapuquiris communities in the Bolivian plateau, women play a key role in preserving crop diversity, which can be threatened by climate change. Their work focuses on improving productive farming, which includes different potato varieties, grain seeds, and medicinal plants. These female farmers also support each other in developing risk management skills and strategies. By ensuring stable potato yields, they guarantee market access for agricultural products that is long-term and beneficial for the entire community. Tamil Nadu, India. Traditional agricultural practices that women developed and refined over generations contribute to climate change adaptation. For example, women farmers in Tamil Nadu, India, have improved traditional post-harvest systems to make food last longer. These practices vary, but commonly include threshing, winnowing, cleaning, and drying. Key message: climate change exacerbates gender inequalities, reinforces gender gaps, and limits women's and men's equal rights and contributions. Empowering women as actors of change and leaders is an essential part of the solution.